Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. There are no traffic jams along the Extra Mile when you're studying for your bar exam. And now your hosts, Jackson Mummy and Megan Saya from Celebration Bar Review.
Well, hey everybody, welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. This is episode 308. We're glad to have you with us. We hope that everyone is healthy and safe. It's been certainly quite a past couple of weeks and so many different levels. There's so much going on. And in this week's episode of the podcast, we want to catch you up on the latest news regarding the July, September, and now the possibility of October 2020 bar exams. My co-host Megan Sayo will be joining me in just a few minutes to talk through all of those changes and our hot takes on what we think is happening and going to happen over the next couple of weeks. So I hope you'll stick around for that. If this is your first time on the podcast, we do want to welcome you. We're glad you're here. We provide these podcasts each week in video and audio formats. If you'd like to watch the video version, you can go to celebrationbarreview.com/308. That's the episode number, and check out all the information there. If you prefer to listen to podcasts, you can do that on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, radio.com, Spotify, just about any place that podcasts are syndicated. Make sure you subscribe to any of those services so that you don't miss out on any special episodes. In fact, I did a special episode just last week, earlier in the week, talking about the changes that were announced midweek by the NCBE. So make sure you check that out. That was episode 307. Now, one of the things that we've been doing periodically throughout this year is spotlighting some students and former students with something less than an interview, but just some notes that they've sent us, because I think sometimes in these difficult moments, it's important to remember how big a difference it makes to pass the bar and what a major step forward that is. And so this week, before we got into our discussion with Megan, I wanted to highlight a note that I got from a former student that I thought was just spot on for where we are in this current world crisis. Dalal had taken our exam for the uniform bar exam, or our course for the uniform bar exam, a year ago. And she wrote to me just a few days ago and said, it's officially been a year since I passed the bar exam and I was sworn in. And it's all thanks to you and your team and Celebration Bar Review. After failing the bar 3+ times, I'm still in disbelief that I finally passed, even a year later. I just wanted to give you an update on how much your review course has literally changed my life. I'm now a full-time lawyer at a medium-sized law firm that I absolutely love in South Jersey. I work in the Special Investigations Insurance Fraud Unit, and I'm doing work that I find challenging and actually and genuinely love doing. I see myself growing and staying there long-term. Because of the setbacks I experienced, I honestly feel like I work harder, and I'm constantly appreciative for the opportunity. My supervising attorneys have noticed this and have complimented me several times on it. After passing the bar, Dalal tells us, she also got engaged, and she and her fiancé recently purchased a home. She said, I've gotten back to doing the things that I love, like fitness, cooking, golfing, paddleboarding, and actually being present with family and friends. When I was in bar exam study mode, I was constantly distracted. I missed so many things and put my life on pause. I couldn't focus on anything else. I'm overfilled with joy that I was able to finally close that chapter and be me again. She says, every now and then, however, I like to revisit that chapter in my life to ensure that I thank those that helped me get out of it. So I wanted to extend my sincere gratitude again for being the catalyst to giving me my life back. Until this day, I implement all of the meditation methods and learning strategies I learned from your course. She said, I just get excited talking about this, and I'm truly grateful. And I think it's just a great story. And Dalal, we're so pleased for you and so excited for you and your success and delighted that you have your life back. And I think in these difficult times that we're all facing right now, it's so important to recognize that having a seat at the table, having a voice, getting your life back, being part of the legal community is a huge, huge step and something that all of us should be striving for. And we're very proud to have a hand in all of your journeys towards that goal along the extra mile. So congratulations, Dalal. Thanks for writing and keeping in touch with us. I look forward to hearing more from you in the months and years ahead. Now, before we jump into our discussion on the updates coming from the National Conference of Bar Examiners and the different jurisdictions around the country, I do want to let you know that this week's episode of the podcast is being sponsored by our all-new free training webinar. It's called Now is the Best Time to Take the Bar Exam, Why You Should Ignore the Crowds and the Fear. Now, this 1-hour training is designed to help you sort through all of the chaos around the different exams coming up over the next few months, and to help you figure out a strategy to be successful to prepare for those exams. It's completely free training, and it's offered a couple of times a week. You'll see the links here on the video page and also in the audio show notes, as well as you can get more details by going to celebrationbarreview.com/now. Now, all you have to do is click on the button to register, and you'll be all set. And even if you can't make the live presentation, we'll send you a copy of the recording. But I will say that one of the advantages of being on with us live is that I do a question and answer period at the end of each of these trainings where we talk through whatever questions you have about your jurisdiction or about the specific strategy that we're offering or what you need to do to implement it. And this Q&A has really been a great opportunity for students and people that are preparing to take the bar exam to just talk through whatever concerns they've got about the things that are happening. So I really encourage you to join us. We're producing these webinar training sessions a couple of times a week. And again, all you have to do is click on the button, look at the schedule, pick the day that works best for you, and then we'll see you on the training. All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into the discussion that Meg and I held with our students, talking about all of the updates that we've had just in the last few days around the upcoming. Hi, Megan, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Well, now that I'm here, that's a good thing. Kind of late to your own party, right? So do we have anything new to talk about this week?
Oh my goodness, do we ever? Everything is constantly changing, huh?
Yes, absolutely.
We have a lot of questions and things to discuss today. So,
all right, let's go ahead and jump in then.
All right, great. So first we want to give people updates with the coronavirus stuff as we've been doing every week, just kind of what's different from this week from last week. So man, things, as we told you last Friday where we said, I'm sure that we will have totally new crazy stuff going on within 7 days. That is very true. Some of you might have been on the Facebook Live that Jackson and I did in the middle of this week, because the NCBE, seemingly out of nowhere, decided to announce that they are offering, and we'll sort of talk about what that means. They are offering another UBE date, October 5th and 6th, and it will be an online exam, but it is up to each state to determine if they want to offer it. And there's a lot of caveats here, so we'll kind of get into that. But yes, first thing to know is the NCBE has said that they are willing to do this online shortened version of the test on October 5th and 6th. And now it's up to states to decide if they want to offer that to their students.
Yeah, and they made the offer at the end of the business day on Tuesday, and as we're recording today, Friday afternoon, no states have accepted that offer. I wanted to just take a minute, because while we're waiting to see if any state will go for it, as we've had a little bit of time now to think about it and process it, what does it say to you that no state has jumped on this and said we're going to do it?
Well, it's interesting. The way that the NCBE framed it was very negatively. They definitely didn't seem to offer it as we're super excited about this. We've been working really hard and we're proud to offer this as an alternative. They really offered it as, if you want to use it, we don't think it's good. We don't think that this is equivalent to the regular exam. If you want to do it, you're on your own you need to find a company that will help you provide it, and basically take it and stop complaining is kind of how I leave us alone. Here's an online option. I don't want to hear about it anymore.
Yeah, it was sort of the Eeyore of bar exam, wasn't it? I guess it's an exam if you want an exam, which it really isn't. But if it was, this would be the one that you could do, but it really isn't any good. I mean, it's got, as you said, so many caveats. One of the key ones is that it's not a transferable score. So it's only good in the jurisdiction that offers it. So if you if there's a jurisdiction, let's say, that decides they want to offer this in the UBE, you've got to go to that jurisdiction. I mean, you're taking it online, but you've got to be willing to be licensed in that jurisdiction, and you can't transfer that score back to New York or Illinois or some other state. That's just not going to happen. So that's one huge caveat. Another is obviously the fact that it's not a full-length exam. It is not a complete MBE. It will have potentially an MBE component, multiple choice component. It'll have an essay component, and it'll have a performance test component. But as best we can tell, it's fewer questions in every section. And because it's fewer questions, that means the reliability of the test, and this is why I think the NCBE is so down on it, it's not a highly reliable test. I think it's here's the best we could do, and if you really feel like you want it, go ahead and do it. But I think the other part of it, really, as I've been processing it, is that it is a sort of a defensive measure to try and stem the flood away from the multi-state, from the September online exams that some of the non-UBE states are talking about, right?
Yeah. So we'll kind of get into it, but a lot of states that don't participate in the uniform bar exam are deciding to give at least an optional online version. And I think that the NCBE may be feeling a little pressure of, we don't want states to abandon the UBE going forward. They want to hold on and retain those states. The UBE only works really if many states participate in it, because then you get the reciprocity. It makes it worth everyone's time. It really doesn't work well if you've only got a handful of states. And so I think that the NCBE may be thinking long term here and thinking we need to make sure that we keep states within the UBE. And so providing this online option at least makes it sound like or seem like to them, hey, we're being reasonable here. Like, if you really want to do online, you can. You don't have to abandon the NCBE in the way that Massachusetts is talking about, that they give the online test, in which case it would not be, as of what we had heard before, this may change the calculus, but it would not be the UBE. It would be Massachusetts heading out on their own and making their own exam. So
yeah, I think so. The other big caveat, I mean, there are many, but I think the last one that we want to highlight today is that this exam would be graded by individual states, not by the national conference. That means, well, the national conference will say in a multiple choice test, A is the correct answer. Outside of that, they're not going to grade them. They're not going to give, I mean, they may give draft or point sheets, but they haven't even indicated that. So it seems like it's a real free-for-all. You could be in a state that might decide that they don't want to, I mean, you and I talked about this a little bit in the midweek. It could be that scores would go down because jurisdictions would say anyone sitting for this October 5th and 6th would be more likely to be a retaker, and we don't want retakers in the bar, so we're going to grade this harder. I mean, I suppose you could have, I've never understood why Washington State lowered their score, but maybe you've got a state that says, oh, we're desperate for more attorneys, and so we're going to grade it more easily than we would. I mean, I just don't know. And I don't know even what, let's say a 100 question MBE instead of a 200 question. How do you decide what the cut score is? I mean, I think part of the reason no state has said yes is because very few states could figure out at this point probably what to do with it. Mm-hmm. I mean, even if they knew they were going to give it, I'm not sure they'd know how to administer it and score it when it's all done on the back end. And I'm not sure there's enough time to get that figured out. I mean, most of these bar examiner groupings are not massive bureaucratic machines. They don't have lots and lots of people. In some of these states, it's like a half dozen folks. So I just don't know how they would do it. And I would say my personal sense is it would not surprise me if no states took them up on this, zero. That would not be a surprise result. Now, there may be one or two. I mean, who knows? But so far, we have gotten no nibbles at all, right? No state has even floated a trial balloon that they might be interested in this as of today. But as you said, in another week, it could be 25 states saying they're going to do it.
I'm staying out of the prediction business with this. Yeah. I'm not interested because, man, we just don't know. I think if there is a resurgence of the virus and states are unable to give a September exam, that October 5th and 6th online is going to look way more appealing than it does today, So I'm just not sure. I think also I'm curious to see if states are more or less likely to do it after we see California's June first year law students exam, which will be online, see how that goes. Again, I keep coming back to that. I know, but I just think it's kind of the linchpin of, if it's successful, I think it's going to make everyone else feel a lot more comfortable with doing it. If it is a mess, I think it's going to scare off a lot of jurisdictions. So.
Yeah, and I'm doing this from memory, but I think the first year exam in California is June 22nd. Does that sound right? If we've got somebody on the chat box that knows, they might be able to tell us. I think that's right. So we're going to be fairly far into June before they administer the exam. Then we don't know how long it'll take to get the feedback that they need to know if it worked and then to make the decision. So there's a lot of moving parts still in that regard. So that's what we know about the NCBE's decision. If you want to know more detail, Megan and I went through it in more detail, and it's you can find it in our podcast episode 307. So just go to celebrationbarreview.com/307. All right. Well, with that crazy news, should we move on then to other COVID news and questions? Yeah.
Yeah. So a few more state updates then. In New York, they opened their second period of registration. So for those of you who had been waiting, who were not recent New York law grads, they did open up the second period now through June 12th. However, it's also restricted. You need to have received your JD from an ABA accredited law school outside of New York and have never sat for a bar exam in the US. So pass or fail, can't have sat for a bar exam. So that means even if you're already a member of a different state's bar. So again, very restrictive. We don't know. They're obviously making no promises that even all those people will get a seat for the New York exam. But
yeah, and I'm not sure that we know, how many seats they're even going to have, because we don't know what the locations are. I don't think they know it yet either. So I would say if you're a repeat bar taker, you're not going to sit in New York. If you're a foreign trained attorney, you're absolutely not going to sit in New York, not in this cycle or sequence. And you should either go to another jurisdiction, and there are jurisdictions out there, or you should wait till the February 2021 exam. I think those are really the options that you've got. Okay.
All right, next, Texas surprised everyone also this week. We just had lots of breaking news. So Texas changed their test format for this last exam that they're going to be giving as a state test. They shortened it from 2.5 days to 2 days. They have cut the number of essays in half. So rather than 12 essays, there will now be 6 essays in Texas just for this one exam. And then they also have changed the weighting to make it 50% of your grade is the MBE. Let's talk about that. The weighting, as you pointed out earlier in the week, is the big news there, because now, and the reason they did this is that, again, you've heard me talk about equating exams. When you reduce the number of essays, you have to increase the weight of the multiple choice in order to make the test still reliable. So the examiners then were forced to increase the value of the multi-state score, because they were cutting out 6 essays and cutting out half a day, which I think is for health and safety reasons. But in doing that, it means that now rock solid on your multi-state if you're taking Texas. Now remember that Texas switches to the UBE in February 2021, and then multi-state is part of the score. I mean, functionally 50% then as well. So it'll be less of a change, but it's a sooner change than would have been expected. The 6 essays in Texas will, I think, typically what Texas does is it takes a topic and it says, we've got property and oil and gas. That's a broad grouping, and you get 1 question in each. Well, they'll pick one, property or oil and gas. They'll pick 1 question in the UCC. They'll pick 1 question in each subject that they typically test in, domestic relations or community property. And I think that's how you'll see the 6 questions divided out. So the other interesting thing about Texas to me is that they are going to go 2 exam dates, right? July and September 9th. And I'm not clear, and maybe somebody knows here, but at this point, I'm not aware that they have explained who's going to go which date, whether it's an applicant's choice or if it's going to be assigned by the examiners. That's the same question we've got in Florida with respect to locations. It appears that right now you're not being given a choice. I'm beginning to think that they're just going to tell you which location you're going to in Florida. And it may be that they're going to tell you which date you're sitting for
in states like Texas or Tennessee, I think, had the same thing, didn't they? Where it was, we've got multiple dates and it looks like they're going to tell you which date you're going to.
Yeah, each state, I mean, it's definitely the check with your state and see if they're, yes, let me just put in assigned by examiners. Check with your individual state if you have more than one date to just confirm, have I been given a date yet? How do I have a preference, or is it just random?
Yeah. And let's say again, phone calls won't work.
Right.
They're not answering the phone anywhere in the country that we're aware of. So email, I think, is the only way to do it. So and watch and check their website for sure. And also you can check our website. We've got whatever has been publicly said. There's a menu item that says July 2020 exam changes on the Celebration Bar Review website, so you can check that. Okay, what else?
Right. Next, we have Louisiana. And Louisiana is a state bar as opposed to part of the UBE, but I wanted to talk about it because they have 2 test dates that they had already announced, but they just announced that they will have an online option for both of them. So I think this is part of a clear trend now, I think I'm willing to call it that, of non-UBE states offering online options or only online. And I think that helps explain the push by the NCBE or them feeling pushed like they needed to give an online option. I think it's also just important that if you are planning on taking at this point, even if you're planning on taking the UBE or a state bar, I think you need to at least be aware of the possibility of an online test. It's just every week we see another online. And then obviously with the NCBE's announcement this week, that pushed it into anybody at least has the possibility that they could be taking an online test. So it's at least something to keep aware of in the back of your mind, because there's a lot of movement towards online examinations, or at least potential movement. So
okay, yeah. So there's a lot happening there. We've got states like Michigan that went online. Nevada's going online with the open book essay exam. So there's a lot of different permutations, a lot of modifications, and it's a quickly shifting landscape. I mean, I think in all of these things, the examiners are making it up on the fly. So one day we've got a rule, next day we don't have a rule. One day we think we know where they're going in terms of assignments, and then they change that, or what the plan is, and they change that. I know we've got, was it Maine that closed out their applicants? Then they opened it up.
And then they just hit their cap again this week, and there's a wait list that'll be in Maine till June 15th. So that's a UBE state that if you were wanting to take it there, they've hit their cap again. So yeah, we've seen some states close and then reopen, some closed and stayed closed. So yeah, it is just, I know it's hard and frustrating. Check the websites because this stuff is just moving really fast, and every single state is doing everything differently. And so check your state's website. Don't assume because that's the way you saw another state doing it, even within the UBE, that that's the way your state will be. It is all over the map.
Okay, good. Any other states we want to highlight?
That is it for highlighting the states. And now we've got some questions about kind of dealing with that.
How to deal with it. Yeah. Okay, let's jump to those. All right.
I'll go to Tanya's question in the chat box first. She said, will all of this insanity surrounding the various administrations of the bar exam affect Jackson's predictions with regard to possible subjects on the UBE? Additionally,
let me deal with that.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, I will do videos typically before the bar exam in each jurisdiction talking about the trends and what I think might be happening. I will certainly do those prior to the first exams in each jurisdiction. So a July exam, or if your first exam is September 9th or September 30th, I will do those. If it's a jurisdiction that's offering the exam multiple times, maybe I will, if I have the information back and I've got something, and I've been thinking about it and trying to figure out if they give you these 6 topics in July, does that mean 6 different topics in September? I don't know. People think somehow that's sort of Nostradamus with me. It's not. I just look at trend lines. It's 30 years of experience. Yes.
No trend lines with 3 now. I mean, now we've got 3 extra exam dates with this October 5th and 6th. So yeah.
So I mean, I could do it, but I'm not sure I'd put a lot of weight in it because, frankly, it's just a a wild-eyed guess. I mean, I really don't. And who knows, right? I mean, what do you look at? What's the basis? I mean, they've never, ever done this. So I don't know how we could come up with anything, but there you go.
And as the NCBE pointed out, with this online, even the shortened version that they're offering for October 5th and 6th, they said it is all fair game. So there is nothing that you should stop studying. Like, do not think, oh, my state, if you're in Texas, just because they shortened the exam does not mean they did not cut out any subject. So you need to study all the same material, the same amount. It's not there's no cutting of subjects.
Right. You need to know the Duhigg doctrine for oil and gas in Texas. There's no getting past that. So it's okay. Yeah. So that, all right, there was more to the question. I stopped.
Yes. And then do you still maintain that those of us taking in July may have a teeny advantage?
Yeah, I do. The basic theory is that a lot of the high scoring, high achieving students would be sitting out because they're going to get a temporary waiver of the bar exam. And I mean, frankly, if you didn't have to take a bar exam right now, if you could just avoid the potential hassle and the health questions and travel and so on, it would make sense to do that. If you had a job, if you could do that if you're a first-time taker. Those first-time takers with jobs, however, represent a tiny, tiny fraction of the overall number of takers, but they represent a big part of the people who pass. So when you move them out of the pool, I think it changes and slides the equating scale down. Now, the equating should happen in the July bar exam, should happen in the September 9th exam. I still have my doubts about the September 30th date. Not many states have picked that date yet. Mm-hmm. But certainly those first two, there should be an equating, and that should be a benefit to people. So I still would maintain that if you're a repeat bar taker trying to sit in July or September 9th, or if the only date your exam is given is September 30th, one of those three dates would be preferable to waiting to February 2021. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know how you would. It's getting crazier by the minute. I think it's, in my mind, the taking it earlier if you can, the advantage there, honestly, is probably more of a mental advantage, that it's like you're just ready and you're doing it and like, let's take this thing. And then you've got other options later on. But it's just, I mean, now we're dealing with 4 exams. I mean, this is completely unprecedented. We are dealing between July and the first week of October is over. We will now potentially have 4 separate administrations. And that's not even counting places like Louisiana, which has its own, they have a secondary date that's like October 10th, I think.
Completely different, yeah.
Right. But this is just completely unprecedented. So yeah.
And I don't know if this was a question that came up that we've got on our list or not, but it did come up in one of my conversations where I think it was a Florida student said, well, could I take the Florida bar exam in July and then enroll in a UBE jurisdiction for September 9th or September 30th, or a jurisdiction that gave the October 5th and 6th test? And my answer is, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows until you try it. I don't know what the bar examiners in those second jurisdictions would say. I would say you've got to absolutely disclose that you sat for the July exam in another jurisdiction. And depending on the date of the test, you probably have your results back. I mean, July Florida exams are usually graded and back by September 15th. So the September 9th, you might not. The September 30th, you probably would. So it's a very strange, I don't know. And I think the only way to do this is to apply to this second jurisdiction, and in your application, just disclose that you're sitting in a July first time application. But also remember, and I don't think we can underemphasize this, jurisdictions like Florida that say they're giving the exam at the end of July, that is still, I think, a very optimistic position. We had a spike in COVID cases in Florida yesterday. We've reopened the state a little bit, or a lot, and we're seeing now a wave again, or maybe at the start of a wave. It is totally, in my mind, impossible to predict what that would look like and whether or not it would be feasible to hold a test in July. And so it could be that you think you're taking the exam in July and Florida decides to move it back, which they'll do whatever they want to do. Trust me, they will do exactly what they want to do when they want to do it, and they will tell you when they feel like telling you. And so you could suddenly find yourself having enrolled for a September 9th test, only to find out that Florida moved back to September 9th or something else. And I'm not saying that will happen. I'm just saying it's a possibility. The other thing that I think is interesting in just trying to get an overall view of this is that we had a couple of states this week, I think, that said they were going to require applicants to fill out waivers of liability for getting COVID at the bar exam. Now, for those who've been studying their contract law, this is a contract of adhesion. I don't personally believe that those waivers are worth anything. But I think that what they're really designed to do is to scare people away from the exam, don't you? That they're really trying to say, don't take the exam. We don't want you to take the exam in July or September or October. We just don't want you here. And so if we can push a few of you out of the door by forcing you to sign this ridiculous waiver, well, we're going to float it. And I don't know, a few states did it, a few more may. It struck me as just ludicrous, right? When we take no liability for your car when you put it in our parking lot. Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah. All right. A few more questions. Okay. So, there's a few people who are asking about with the online exams, especially people in California, saying that my home is just really not ideal. Like I just don't have the right place to take the exam in the home, given all of the restrictions that we have found from the June, first year students exam. So people just kind of wondering, what should I do if like I can't take it? There's not really the right spot in my house to do it.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this. So here's my off the wall suggestion, frankly. When I come to California, I stay at a Residence Inn hotel. It's got a nice big desk. It's got good Wi-Fi. It's built for business travelers. There are no books in the room. I can put a door up. I actually was thinking we might have commission June to make up some signs that say, I'm taking the bar exam. Don't knock, don't enter, don't bother me. Be quiet. Those kind that you put on the door. But I'm wondering if just going to a hotel room might not be the best way so that there's nobody else there. And the only risk you're taking is the quality of the hotel's internet, which is a risk. I mean, it totally is a risk because if it gets blipped off, you're done. But frankly, some people have such crappy internet at home that and the 12-year-old that runs in and decides they're going to play Xbox in the middle is a problem too, or the pet that comes into the room, or the books you got to move out, or whatever. So I mean, maybe it's worth checking out a hotel that's a business hotel and saying, let's talk about your internet. And you come in the night before and you check it and you make sure, and is it rock solid, and leave me alone, and so on. Short of that, I mean, I think you've got to do what you talked about last week or the week before. You got to upgrade your internet. You got to get a better router. You got to make sure your computer's good. You got to get everybody, all pets, children, other human beings out entirely. You got to put signs up. You got to get all the stuff out of your office or space. You got to go buy Depends. I mean, you got to do what you got to do to get ready for this. You have some time to think about it. Don't obsess about it. Don't not study. Don't say, well, I can't study torts this week because I had to think about where to take the exam. That would be a mistake. Don't you agree?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. You need to make the studying needs to be the priority. Definitely. Yeah. And I mean, my heart goes out to the first year students in California because just the guinea pigs will have a better idea. I mean, we just don't know, like, does a hotel room work, or are they going to get upset that, like, if you're in Residence Inn kind of thing that's got a kitchen and a bed and all this stuff kind of in one big room, it has a TV, right? Like, you can't have any electronics.
That's true. That could be problematic.
I mean, it's hard. It's really hard.
It's such a good plan. The TV thing. I didn't think of that.
TV, they won't let you have a TV in it. So it's really hard. And if you're taking it online, if you're going to have to take it online, you're just going to have to be flexible, I think, until we get to the end of June and we have a better idea of how functionally in practice the first year law students exam went online. Mozzie, how to scratch paper for online testing work. No scratch paper. You're going to have it online scratch paper. So it is.
You cannot have any papers on your desk. You can't have any in the room. Yeah. You can't have anything. I mean, no water, no coffee, no nothing. Here's what you need to do. If you're a coffee drinker like me, get these babies. They're called Viter Energy. And one tablet is worth a cup of coffee, and they're great. I've recommended them for years to people. They're caffeinated mints. They've got different flavors. And if you want to know where I get all my energy from, that's where it comes from. So anyway, all right.
Someone asked, I'm taking the California attorney's exam, so will this potential October 5th through 6th test be relevant to me?
We don't know. If California decides to offer an exam, maybe. Would they offer the attorney's exam as part of that? Maybe. I would bet against it. I mean, I think California's going to offer their exam in September, and they'll go online. And I think since you don't need the multi-state, you'll be less impacted by it than a general bar taker. But again, I think until they've run the first year exam in California, again, I'm thinking June, late June, something like that for the test date there. Yeah. So, and it's just going to take them some time to figure out if it worked or not. And then we'll see what they do. So I would say somewhere in the month of July, they'll start saying, well, here's the way it's going to look in September. And we'll react to that and see where we go.
Right. And we're remembering too that in California, they still haven't committed to doing
they haven't.
Exam. So they really want to, but they have not committed to it yet. So it's just so many of these jurisdictions are so up in the air with what's actually going to function.
Yeah. Which is really, it's a challenge for sure. So
yeah. All right. Last question in this kind of field. With all this that is happening, I'm feeling spent. This is somebody who's taking the California bar, and they said we're also on a curfew here in San Francisco. So just people kind of feeling like there's so much going on between coronavirus and protests and brutality. And it's like, how am I supposed to study and pick where I'm taking the bar and do all of this right now?
Yeah. I wish I had an answer. I wish that I could wave a magic wand and tell you that it all goes away and we're able to just cocoon ourselves. I think that the same advice that we've given for a long time about trying to compartmentalize still is true. That when it's time to do your bar study, that's what you focus on. When it's time to deal with your family, that's what you do. And you don't try to multitask. You don't try to multitask work and bar study at the same time. I mean, the same hour of the day. If you're going to engage in social activity, whether it's socializing or social protest, you put that time in there, and you don't bring your bar review books to the protest march. The reality is that the number one task you have as a bar taker with respect to a lot of things right now is not the bar. It's taking care of your family. It's taking care of your health. It's taking care of the things that are in your orbit. But professionally, preparing for the bar is going to be pretty high up on your list. And for some of you, it will be at the top of your list. So you give it the priority and the weighting that you need to. Now, I would say that one of the tools that can really help is meditation and the paraliminals. June, you've got in the order tab, I think we've got a tab for the Calm and Health Paraliminals. This is a series of 4 paraliminals that we worked on with Learning Strategies. I find them very helpful. I listen to them every day. They are designed for improved health and also for calm and just sort of reaching a peace. There are a lot of things going on, obviously, right now, socially, that are beyond any of our individual control, although we may have a collective input onto them. But if you take on all of that weight individually, it's going to overwhelm, I think, a lot of people. And so I think recognizing that your primary task may be to pass the bar, that may be the way that you're going to have the greatest impact socially. And it's certainly one of the things you can do in a coronavirus world to feel like you've got some control. But all of those are sort of back and forth about how do you get around all this. And I think you have to reach your own level of equilibrium for what you can do, right?
Yeah, definitely. And just remember that your goal of passing the bar is ultimately to better the profession, right? Like, we believe that the law profession will be better for having each one of you in it. I hope that you believe that about yourselves. And yeah, I think it's just worth the time to put it into this and to try the best you can amidst all the craziness and hurt to focus that in a productive way, which for you guys is going to look like, in part, like studying for the bar and doing the best you can on that. So, yeah.
Yeah. And check out the paraliminals and also holistic audio meditation. I mean, look, and I know, Megan, you feel the same way. This has been a very troubling 10 days or so, and it can just overwhelm you. And so you have to be able to control what you can control. If you let it get to you, and when you add the stress of the bar exam, it's going to be overwhelming and it's going to be too much. And so you gotta be proactive about that. Take good care of your health, exercise, eat right, all those things. Okay.
Yep. All right. So we're all done, and stay safe to everybody, and take care of yourselves, take care of your mental health. It's a lot. I mean, physical health, mental health right now. Know that we're here for you, and whatever you need, we care about each and every one of you, and I want to help you succeed and succeed in your goal of passing the bar and bringing the unique perspective that each one of you has to this legal profession, because we need it.
Yeah, I echo all of that. Thank you, Megan, for being here. We will see you all next week. Thank you. And everybody be safe, keep studying, and take care. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Well, I hope that information has been helpful to you. There's certainly a lot going on. I want to remind you again that you can check out updates on our webpage at celebrationbarreview.com. You'll see a menu item called July 2020 Exam Changes. We keep that up to date with all of the details of what's being announced where, and we'll try and make sure that everybody stays up to date on that. Finally, I want to remind you that our free training webinar, Now is the Best Time to Take the Bar Exam, is available a couple of times a week. Make sure you click on the show notes for the button to enroll. It's totally free. Or you can go to celebrationbarreview.com/now for all the details, and then we'll see you there. Remember, there's a free Q&A at the end of each of those presentations where we answer your questions about the bar exam and about what's going on. Well, I hope everybody stays safe and healthy. Look forward to seeing you all again next week. Please be well, continue on with your studies, and we will see you along the extra mile.
Thanks for listening and watching the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers at celebrationbarreview.com.